excited about today's class, primarily because I have been very fired up about what's happening in our marketplace. So for those of you who haven't done any reading on like forecasting on what's happening for 2019 and 2020, what they're saying is that we are going to have a similar amount of transactions that are getting done, but overall we are going to be lower in the amount that we personally do, because there is higher concentration of competitors, right? So there's internet banks, internet realtors, iBuyers, hedge funds, all kinds of people have infiltrated our marketplace and made it extremely hard for us to be successful with the minimal sales skills that we've been working with, right? So for the last 5 years, it's been fairly easy for us to sell homes, right? We deal with 60% of the population, guys, that they will do things in order that you tell them to. So if they found you at an open house, they were likely to do business with you, right? Unless they came into contact with people who had a stronger opinion, okay? So today's class is going to be all about closing. How do we get people off the fence? So I want to preface something first and foremost. So for me, guys, sales is not about manipulating people. It's not about tricking them into closing. It's about providing value and helping people make the right decision. If we're all on that same playing field, right, then what we're doing is helpful, right, and we're not the used car salesman that people want to reject, right? So I can tell you that every single real estate agent I have ever met with always gives me the excuse that, hey, I don't want to contact my friends or family because I don't want to come across as a salesperson. Like, I don't want to be salesy, right? And my comment to that, I'm always baffled because we are salespeople. And if we're going to command like 3%, right? If you're going to command a 3% commission, we have to be providing attorney, doctor level advice. And for me, I don't think an attorney considers themselves a salesperson. I don't think a doctor considers themselves a salesperson, but they sure as hell are in sales, right? They care that you go to their doctor's office. They care that they're the person that's representing you in your accident or your divorce or your probate situation, right? They care, right? And they don't feel uncomfortable providing you with advice and helping you like close the deal, okay? So that's all stuff that we have to remember, right? When we feel uncomfortable, we're not manipulating people. We are not in the business of creating drama, right, and tricking people, okay? We are in here to help people make good financial decisions, okay? So raise of hands here, how many people have personally invested in real estate themselves? Means you own your own home or you bought an investment property, okay? Here's what's awesome about that, right? So you need to start talking to people about investments, okay? So, and how we make money with the market. So that's first and foremost, right? So you need to know market statistics. So write this down, because this is not a statistics class, but this is where you get the information. You can pull it off the Cromford report, or the Freddie Mac forecasts and information on that website is historically the closest, most accurate information in the marketplace, okay? So, just so you guys know today's market forecast for 2019, they're predicting about a 5% appreciation rate nationwide, okay? So they're saying that of all the houses that are being purchased, right, that 5% will be the average appreciation. In 2020, though, they're predicting that the market appreciation will go down to 2.9%, okay? Does anyone know what's special about 2.9%?
Who said that?
This is Freddie Mac.
It's still higher than the historical average of 2.5%?
That's close, right? So the average appreciation, right, that what we see as a stable, normal, awesome market is 3%. So 2.9% is exactly where we want to be. So we do not have a declining market. What we have is a stabling market. So a market that is stabilizing, okay? So what happened is we had a gigantic crash. Right before we had an acceleration that was beyond what our markets could hold, okay? So we have spent the last 12 years recovering from that rapid acceleration and the dramatic crash, Okay, are we all in agreement there? Okay, here's where economists disagree, right? So before this crash, right, real estate cycles were from anywhere between 7 to 11 years with rises and falls and rises and falls, okay? We had never seen as dramatic of a rise and as dramatic as a fall, and so people are having a hard time predicting when we're going to have this correction, because we will have a correction, okay? So this is why we have to get really, really knowledgeable about what happens in the marketplace, because this is how we educate our buyers on when it's a good time to purchase, okay? So first of all, it's my professional, personal, passionate belief that it is never a bad time to buy real estate, okay? But I do believe that it is a bad time, that there are bad times to sell, okay? So if you were to have purchased in the height of the market in 2006, right, that's when prices were the highest that we'd seen them before the bubble and they started to decrease, right, you would be 12 years paid in to a 30-year mortgage, okay? The average homeowner nowadays lives in their property 10 years, okay? So we're talking about your mortgage is almost half paid off. Doesn't sound so bad now, right? Seriously, that property probably cash flows. It definitely has equity, right? Has it surpassed the value? In some areas, yes, right? But if you only lost money if you sold that property, okay? A free and clear property, guys, always makes sense, okay? It's just like the stock market. People get freaked out and they never want to purchase when things are on sale. They only want to purchase when it's super expensive and they know people are making money, which is why they don't make any money. There's an entire career, guys, based on the concept of not losing money, but not making any money either. They're called wealth managers. And their entire job is just to make sure that you keep the same amount of money. Isn't that crazy? Like, to me, that just makes zero sense, right? But this is how society works, okay? So if we're going to give professional level doctor, lawyer advice, guys, you need to know what's going on in the marketplace. So get a subscription to the Cromford Report, okay? Start reading the Freddie Mac, they do forecasts, they have a monthly newsletter, they have all kinds of articles. Google is your best friend. It'll tell you the average rents in Phoenix, right? That's probably some knowledge that you guys need to know, especially if you have somebody who's deciding whether renting or buying is the right choice, okay? It also tells you average appreciations, right, for different areas. So Mace is going to be different than Buckeye, then different than Avondale, that's different than Cave Creek, right? You guys need to know what the average appreciation is, okay? Now, the other thing is, guys, I was shocked to learn that the average homeowner stays in their property 10 years, okay? That is not the same statistic, though, for first-time homebuyers. First-time homebuyers are now living in their homes anywhere between 3 and 7 years, okay? It just depends on what stage they are in their life, okay? So, and believe it or not, we have a lot of first-time homebuyers, guys, in their 40s and 50s, okay? So you just have to pay attention. There's NAR reports that talk to you about age groups and purchases. You know, female buyers actually make the highest percentage of new first-time home buyers, right? This is all stuff you guys need to know, okay? If you guys are going to command a big commission, right, this is how we provide value. Are we all in agreement? Okay, yes. Did it sound like trickery here? Okay, cool. Because what I'm about to get into next, guys, is actual closing skills. So I wanted to give you a state of the market because I want you to know why I'm passionate about this. And I want to be one of the 30% that's still standing next year, right? So they're predicting that we're going to lose a majority of the people who entered in now. Okay, I can name 6 clients off the top of my head who became real estate agents this year. Because it's easy. They think it was quick money. They're like, well, I found my house on the internet. How hard can it be? It sounds funny, but that's literally what's happening. Our market is getting saturated, okay? So we know that it's going to be even harder next year, right, to do the same amount of transactions because of the amount of competition, okay? But we just have to make it for 1 year. Our skills have to sharpen so tough. We've got to be relentless this next year so that we survive, so that in 2020, when the transactions are more and the market is definitely stable, right, we have a bigger market share. Okay? So, now that I told you how I feel, right, and based on research, right, I'm going to teach you now how to get people off the fence. Okay? So, question for you guys, and participation is really huge for a speaker, guys. It gets us motivated and excited and keeps the energy up. Okay, so I need you guys to be with me. How many of you guys have gone to somewhere where you knew exactly what you were going to buy, exactly where you were going to pay, you walked out with exactly what you expected, and you felt a little dirty? Right? Like you're just like, ugh, I should have asked for more, or I should have done this, or it just felt too easy, it was just weird. Yes or no? Okay, cool. At the same time, have you ever thought you were going to buy something, came in with all your knowledge prepared, and then walked out with something completely different for more money and felt awesome?
Yes.
Okay? You and Dan, the shoe guy, are now best buds. Right? Like, this stuff happens. Let me tell you why it happens. It happens because they met your sales language. Okay? Just like a love language and an apology language, you have a sales language. Right? So you have a language that makes you feel like understood. Okay, it makes you feel good about a purchase. Okay, and if you hit this, guys, for your clients, hands down, they will be great referral partners for you. Okay, so you guys need to know these categories of clients. You have your raving fans that you mentioned the word house, they're going, oh my God, Tori Ellens. You didn't even mention you needed a realtor, right? They just, you know that they have a great one, okay? They're basically shoving it down your throat. They know you're renting and they're like, you need to talk to Tori, okay? This is how that goes. Those are your raving fans. They typically make about 4 closings a year for you or try to, refer you, right? They're good for like 12 referrals. So then you have what's called a promoter, okay? So these people are beyond satisfied clients, they're super happy with your services, and if they know there is a need, right, they're gonna shout your name. So they're the people that are like, hey, I'm looking for a good realtor, and they're like, oh my God, Tori Ellens, right? So they saw your Facebook post, they're just gonna handle it, right, because they know that there's a need. Those are promoters. Now, the largest category of a database and the population are what are called satisfied clients. These are satisfied customers. They don't leave you a review, even though everything closed on time, the inspections went well, the appraisal met value, right? Nothing went wrong, but they're just not inspired enough to go shout your name off of the rooftops, okay? They will refer you if specifically asked. So I'm gonna have to go, Sammy, do you know a good real estate agent? And then Sammy would then say yes or no. Here's the hard part with satisfied clients, guys. Here's what makes it really tricky, is that if a satisfied client comes into contact with somebody with a stronger opinion, they'll flake. That's just what happens, right? They just flake. So they're the people that you had the most amazing conversation with. You have a kid, she has a kid, you went to Nogales, she's from Nogales, you're like, we're buddies. And then they never pick up your phone call again. You've had that happen. I've had that happen lots. I'm like, what the heck, right? The reason that it happens, guys, is because they ran into a raving fan or promoter, or they ran into what's called a detractor. And a detractor is somebody who was unhappy with your services. These are people that like, oh my God, you mentioned the word home, and they're like, oh my God, don't go with so-and-so. So-and-so was horrible. Right? They're the ones that leave you negative reviews, okay? So just so you know, they are equally as important as a raving fan, right? There are lots of salespeople who will tell you to ignore those people and move on. I think, personally, that there is a very fine line between love and hate. And I will tell you that I had one of the worst surveys I ever had. Literally, the thing read, get a new job, right? Became one of my best referral partners because I pay attention and have a program to love on my people that I don't knock it out of the ballpark with, okay? So just know that if you pay just as much love to them as you do your raving fans, they become raving fans too. Okay, if they care enough to hate you, it's a good thing. Okay, you can get them to love you. All right, so now that you know that there's those categories of people, right? So, and you know that what it feels to have a dirty sale and a clean sale, right? You know that the people that are raving fans, you understood their language, okay? So you each got a copy of the disc, okay?
Wow.
And the disc is what's gonna tell you guys primarily what people's sales language is, okay? And here's the first question you have to be asking yourself, okay? And write this down because this is important, okay? So is this person logical and aggressive? Or are they are they emotional and non-aggressive?
Logical and aggressive, and what was the second one? Or?
Emotional and non-aggressive. So logical and aggressive, emotional, non-aggressive. Okay. So here's an example of an aggressive person. They call on the phone, hey, just tell me what your rates are. You've heard them. Hey, tell me what the price of this house is. Yes or no, you've met them? Okay.
Yes.
Is that an aggressive person? Okay. If we have somebody who calls and says, hey, I would like the data on this particular subdivision, is that aggressive?
No, that's analytical.
It's analytical, but it's direct. Okay, so what would that person be?
A D.
That person is logical and aggressive. Does that make sense? Right, I'm trying to tell you the differences really quickly. Right, when you talk to someone and say, hey, what are you looking for in a property? And they say things like, oh, I'm just looking for a really great area to entertain. What does that sound like?
Emotional.
Right? Or if you say, hey, what's preventing you from buying? And they're like, oh, well, the market's gonna crash. And you say, well, where'd you get that information? I just know it is. What is that?
It's emotional.
Emotional. And it's also not logical.
Oh, wow.
Right? So this is like what you have to ask yourself. If their statements are aggressive and logical, right? I need X, Y, Z, right? Market data is logical and they know what they want, that's aggressive. If they're talking in pictures, it's emotional. If they're not asking you for specific information, but they're going with feelings on like statistical information, it's not logical. Right? You've met those people. It's the right price, it's the right bedroom count, it's the right thing. It checks all their boxes, but they just can't make a decision. It's not logical. Okay? So you just have to understand that about people, okay? So, your D people, guys, these are going to be people that are aggressive and logical. Your influencers, so your chatty Cathys, are going to be emotional and aggressive.
Non-aggressive?
No, it's emotional and aggressive. Your steady people, the people who care about stability, number one, are fear-based, so they are non-logical, or excuse me, not aggressive, and emotional, right? They need you to show them the way. And your C people are not aggressive, but logical. They have a hard time making a decision. Does that make sense? Did you have a question?
What was the compliant people? They're non-aggressive and
Logical. They have a hard time making a decision. Okay? I want you to write have a hard time making a decision because this is that thing because we're going to explain like what drives them, okay? So it's also super important to know that even though we're talking about like their styles and communication, a D person, guys, will make a decision with their gut. Okay? They can tell within 1 minute or less whether or not they like you. Okay? They qualify you just based on a feeling, right, which is not logical 100%, but they just want to know how you're going to save them time, how you're going to make them or save them money, and be efficient to minimize their stress. Okay? When you're talking to them, you want to make sure that you're bullet pointed, right, and to the point, right? They do not want to know what you did this weekend. Okay? They don't want you to ask them what they did this weekend. Okay? They want to know that they're moving forward, the progress, but bottom line, okay? Their biggest fear is you taking advantage of them. Now, an I personality, guys, it's important to note too that a D, so true Ds make up 10% of the population. Now, an influencer, guys, these are your chatty Cathys. These are the people that just have so many emotions, and here's how you have to picture them, okay? There is a gigantic elephant, okay, and then there's a person who rides the elephant, okay? At any moment in time, the elephant can knock off its rider and trample all over them, okay? Your emotions, when you're an I, are the elephant, okay? Most of the time, you get it, but if there is something you want and it means something deep down inside, there is no amount of logic that is going to change your mind, okay? You have met these people, okay? What's important about sales with somebody who is an I person who feels with emotion, sometimes it's hard for them to visualize the end result. So they walk into the home and there's like crackling paint, or the floors aren't redone, right? Or there's no pool in the backyard, okay? And they just can't picture their life there. So this is where you come in and you're like, hey, this would make an excellent spot for the Christmas tree, right? Can't you imagine hearing your kids running down the hall to open their Christmas presents? And if you were to put in a pool in the backyard, you could easily wash the dishes and like be talking to your kids and watching them play outside, right? And if you painted this gray or knocked out this wall, this would be the perfect entertainment space that you've been wanting, okay? That's how an I person has to be sold, right? They want you to add humor. They care that you are on the same page, that you go through the same things. They don't want details on the transaction itself. They just want to feel good about the purchase. Their biggest fear, guys, is loss of prestige, right? Looking bad, not fulfilling the requirement, not meeting this vision, keeping up with the Joneses. Okay. Does anyone have questions about that? DRI? Okay. Now, your next one is a supporter. This is 60% of the population. This is actually why it's been so easy for us to sell. Because 60% of the population, guys, is basically sold on the next step, right? They just, if you have a stronger opinion than they do, they will just move forward with it, okay? So they want security, they want safety, they want to know the process. When you're talking to them, you want to ask for their opinions and then with open-ended questions, okay? So it's not, are you available, because that's a yes or no. It's, are you available on Tuesday at 1 or Thursday at 2? Okay? How did you feel about that house? Right? Like, so you just have to know that it's open-ended questions and ask for their opinions. They want your acceptance, right? So they want to know, like when you ask them for their opinion, they want to know that it's a good opinion, right? Absolutely, I love this neighborhood, right? You're definitely making a right decision. This is a great school district. You know what I mean? They just want to know that you think it's a good decision too. their biggest fears, guys, are sudden change, right? So this is the people that freak out if they're like, didn't get something negotiated, they put in an offer and there's a counter offer back. Or like 5 things went wrong with the inspection, they think the whole deal is falling apart. You know what I mean? You know those people, right? They get asked for one condition on their home loan, they think they're not gonna be approved. And I deal with this all the time, okay? So you just have to know, really good communication with them is going to resolve some of their big fears. Now, C, and they make up 60% of the population. Now, C people, guys, this is the hardest sale of all of the 4. Okay, so a C person needs a lot of information, and if you don't give it to them, they don't trust you. Okay, but if you give them too much information, they can't make a decision. So it's really, really hard, and most of us don't have the patience to explain for 45 minutes the same loan program, okay? Or the same comparable statistic information, or the appraisal, or the BINSR. They're just really hard. They just want fairness. They want things to be fair. They don't need to know that they're getting the best deal. They just want it to be fair. And they need a systematic approach to explanation. Always give them facts. And then they want accuracy. So if you can't summarize, they want, like, if it's $45.67, they want to know the 67 at the end. You can't say 46. Okay? No rounds, exact detail. They want to know that if you said that the appraisal will be back on Monday, what time on Monday? Okay? Their biggest fear is criticism. Here's how you piss off somebody with this C. You say, well, this isn't what you said, right? They've given you a list of everything you're looking at, and then you say, well, this isn't what you told me we were looking at, right? This is where we need to go. You said X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to make you raise your hands, but I can tell you that all of us have made that mistake in sales.
Yes.
Okay? I had literally, and I just learned this lesson 2 weeks ago, I had a guy who said he had 0 money out of pocket and wanted bond funds. Okay, 0 money, he had 0 money, he wanted a bond program, he had already done all of his research, we did a scenario on 3 different bond programs, and then he said, well, I also want to explore FHA. And in my mind, I had already gone through the conversation of you have no down payment. Right? And so I said, well, help me understand this, because in our needs analysis, you said we don't have down payment, and so the reason that we're going through option A, B, and C, because these are the programs that give you bond funds, right? So instead of answering his question, I circled back to my needs analysis, because that's what he said, and he's like, why won't you give me the information? Okay? And it's because he felt like I didn't want to do the work, or I was criticizing what he said to me. And the thing is that obviously we judge ourselves by our intention. I told you the story, so now you understand where I'm coming from. But in his mind, he's telling his friends, oh, I wanted to know this other scenario, and she's pushing these bond programs. And these bond programs, they have higher interest rates and higher fees, and she won't tell me what FHA is. Right? So just know that the biggest way to piss them off is not to give them details they ask for. Okay? So, yes.
So how would you, this is my brother, he's buying a house, it's like the exact same. So how would you problem solve with somebody like that, or how do you work around that?
So, here's what I should have done, okay? What I should have done is said, absolutely, on an FHA loan, the down payment's gonna be 3.5%. This is what it would cost, this would be the interest rate. Now, I know in our needs analysis before, you wanted to do a down payment program because we're going to have some challenges with the down payment. Has that changed? Right? Give them the information, then ask the question. That's the problem, right? So my withholding of information, criticized his question, put him on the defense, and then he no longer trusted me. I then had to spend 3 days, okay, with multiple 45-minute conversations, rebuilding trust, re-edifying him, redoing all this, and in the end, guys, he was able to get a gift from a family member that wasn't on the original needs analysis, and we ended up going, not even FHA, we actually ended up with the conventional loan program at 3%. Okay? Sometimes things change. So I should have given him the information and then asked him, hey, has the situation changed? Right? Which then didn't put him on the defense, which said, but you said, right? Okay, so does that all make sense? Because now we're going to go into actual closing skills. Okay? So, how many of you guys are guilty of calling somebody and saying, hey, it's Lizzy, just checking in? Raise your hands, raise your hands, all of you are guilty. I know you're all guilty. You know why? Because it's an easy conversation to have. Okay? I need you guys to know this, and if you get nothing else from me today, this is the most important thing I'm saying. The most, okay? If you are not their doctor or their mother, you have zero reason to call them to check in. Okay? You know why? Because you don't really care. Let's get real. Unless we know that they have a disease or they're going through a horrible life crisis, right? We're calling to find out if they're ready to buy, yes or no.
Yes.
Okay? So, if we're calling to check in, guys, it's weak. It doesn't get people off the fence. It doesn't help solve their problems. It is not a call with value. Okay? When somebody told me that, so I actually got schooled because I called somebody once, and this guy was a D personality, and I said I was calling to check in, and he literally was like, whoever taught you sales needs a new job. And click. And I was like, what the hell? But in my sales training, they told me to pick up the phone and call him back. And then I said something like, hey, I think we got disconnected. Right? Because that's what they also tell you. And he's like, let me help you out here. The guy was just like being, and you know what, he was kind of a jerk, but it taught me this lesson that, you remember those hang-up phone calls, the ones that were really nasty. Like I remember the survey that said get a new job. He was just like, you're not bringing me any value. And I was like, you know what? I'm not bringing him any value.
And he perceived that as being wasting his time, and you can't waste a D personality's time.
Yes, and you can't waste anyone's time, really. But the other thing is, I realized it's not really authentic. Like if I'm calling as a business professional, as a mortgage loan officer, I should be calling and saying, hey, how's the home search going? Right? That's a professional question, right? And it accomplishes the same goal as checking in, except I don't use a filler question, right? I'm saying, hey, how's the home search going? And then they're going to respond with something like, well, I've seen a couple homes, but nothing that really sparks my interest, right? How many of you guys have said that? Okay, well, tell me more about that, right? So what isn't meeting your criteria, or what is it that you're looking for, or how can we better solve this? How can we better solve this, right? So that's the stuff that we need to figure out, right? So then at that point in time, I'm giving them permission to tell me what's wrong with the home search. What aren't they finding, okay? And then I can interject with some of that really good information that I was telling you at the beginning. You know what? Let me tell you, I completely understand your concern. Obviously, this is a humongous purchase. And, we all feel like we're going to live in our houses forever, right? In case the economy crashed, you want to know that this is the one. But let me help you feel better about this. Most first-time home buyers live in their houses anywhere between 3 and 7 years. A lot of life happens. You don't have any kids yet. You're not married, right? This is the second job you've ever had. Chances are, this is not your forever home. But let me talk to you about what a great investment this is, right? This home is going to appreciate 3% every year, okay? Your rent does nothing for you, and you have to live somewhere, okay? So on a $200,000 purchase and your minimum investment is $7,000, in 3 years, that's gone to $18,000. That's an $11,000 profit on your investment, okay? Is $18,000 a bigger down payment on the newer house, right? Is it money to make improvements to this house? how long would it take you to save $11,000? Okay. Does that sound like a script that will help somebody get off the fence? Okay. The next one is, well, you know what? I just don't know if it's the right time to buy right now. Let me tell you, my neighbor, she said that the market is crashing and that I should hold off for 6 months because I'll really get a deal. Right? Or my boss, or my mother, or my brother, right? And then, how many of you guys have lost money in real estate? Okay, I have personally lost money in real estate, but I have also made, so I lost $108,000. I don't know why I thought that was my payoff. $108,000 on one property, okay? I bought it in 2006, and when I got married, my husband told me that we needed to sell it because he was worried the market was gonna crash. But let me tell you, my husband was not a real estate professional, and I did not seek out the advice of professionals, right? I peer pressured me into selling this deal, okay? That's what happened, okay? I lost my butt, okay? That property today, though, I would have been like almost, like halfway paid off, okay? And in a couple of years, I would have been at even in value, okay? So I tell them this story. I'm like, yes, the market goes, it ebbs and flows, absolutely. But let me tell you something that I know of for sure, because I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot tell you if there is going to be a market crash. What I can tell you is that the government can no longer extend what is called quantitative easing. We no longer can fund that. That's the thing.
What does that mean?
I'm about to explain to you. Quantitative easing, right? Makes you sound really smart, very knowledgeable, right? I'm an expert, okay? But it's basically what the government was doing to suppress interest rates. So they were buying bonds to bring interest rates lower, okay? So they were artificially lowering interest rates, and we can no longer support it as an economy because inflation is too high. So interest rates have to go up so that money is worth something, okay? So as a fact, right, interest rates have increased more than 1% in this year, okay? At the beginning of last year, or the beginning of this year, we could still get a 3.875 rate, okay? The best interest rate in the marketplace right now is 4.75, and many of our consumers are in the 5s already. Next year, Freddie Mac is predicting another 0.5% to 0.75% increase in interest rates, okay? I can tell you that the same $200,000 house that you're looking at today, if it was worth $180 next year, at next year's interest rates, would cost you $55 more a month. Because interest rates have more of an impact on your buying power than the price of the home. And if you're not intending on selling this, right, for any time, the average homeowner owns their property for how many years? 10 years, right? That's where you sell statistics, right? Like, this property is going to be fine, right? But $55 a month over 30 years is how much money, right? You just do the math, 360 months, okay? This is the stuff that gets them off the fence, right? You've never had a logical reason why the market doesn't crash because all you say is, well, you don't have a crystal ball, right? You can say, well, look, I have been studying economics. I can tell you that the 4 leading economic reports, NAR, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and Inman, I don't know if Inman has them, but I do know that NAR, Freddie Mac, and Fannie Mae have these reports, that say that the economy is going to be stable for the next 4 years. Unemployment is the lowest it's been. Businesses are flourishing, right? Stock market's had a great run, except for like this moment in time. But again, that ebbs and flows too, right? I'm stoked because it is benefiting interest rates, let me tell you. But that's what we tell people, right? You can make a case for almost anything, right? So like, I don't want to list right now because it's the holidays. Well, let me tell you, inventory is very low. You have less competition, and if you price this right, your house will sell, right? Let me tell you, in the springtime, when you have a whole lot more competition and houses are way more upgraded than your property and buyers have way more of a selection, it's going to be harder. Not to mention that in April and May, that's when lenders typically have the most appraisal problems with value. Did you guys know that as a real estate agent? You should know that. You know why? because in December, January, and February, sales are lower, okay? And when there are lower sales, prices go down, okay? We've now, in December, appraisals are high, right? I have several appraisals that came in with equity because the last 6 months, guys, sales have been strong, okay? So even though there are more activity, more buyer activity then, right? It doesn't mean that the values are strong. So the angriest real estate agents ever get at me is during April and May, right? Because I cannot control appraisals, okay? All right, so does that all make sense? Now we know logical things. We're never gonna call and check in again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Okay, good, I'm just making sure. Okay, so, here's what you need to know. So people make their decisions with their head, gut, and their heart, okay? So when they make decisions, and I can get you a copy of this if you want to, if you've signed up, okay? So I don't spam people, so if you want my stuff, you have to ask me for it, okay? So like I said, I'm not salesy, I'm providing value, okay? If you want me to continue to provide value to you, I need you to sign up for my classes, okay? So here are the best closes that I know of, okay? So for your hardest bracket of the marketplace, which is your C personality, you're going to need to master what's called an if this, then that close, and an option, okay? They're typically done in combination because a C personality needs multiple scenarios, and typically it's hard for them to make a decision, okay? So they need to know multiple scenarios. So for me, with a C personality, I do what's called a needs analysis, a very thorough one that finds out what other major concerns are. If cash to close is a major concern, if monthly payment is a major concern, exactly how much they want to pay for payment and monthly payment and purchase price. Okay, I'm trying to find out as many details as possible because I'm also going to do what's called a list summary. So circle if this then that, option close, and list summary, and write C next to them. Okay, so these are your C personalities. So here's what an option close sounds like. Hey, so option A is low cost with higher payment, and option B is higher cost with a lower payment. Which one sounds better to you? Okay, and then I probably go, okay, so of these scenarios, we can do 1 point at this, half a point at this, par at this. Okay, so it's a 2 option. You see, I did low cost, right, higher payment, higher cost, lower payment. Does that make sense? Okay, now, for a D personality, guys, they just need the option close, right? So they're gonna go with their gut, you're gonna give them choices, they're gonna assume that they're in charge, okay? But you're giving them options. A C personality will need multiple option closes, okay? Now, depending on their scale of fear, okay, right? Because we know that some people are a little scared and some people are like, you know, right? So depending on their level of fear, right? I then might take it to a list summary, right? So I've given them option A and option B, and now I'm going to list summary all of their concerns, and then I'm going to say something like, in my professional opinion, this particular loan problem or loan solution solves X, Y, Z. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, how many of you heard the, well, I need to talk to my husband about it, or I'm gonna think about it? Okay, that's a C personality too, and you did not close them. So your list summary did not work, your options did not work. Here's what you say. I completely understand you needing to think about it. Is there any additional information that you need to help make your decision? Or, sometimes I'm a little bit more bold and I'll say, so given what you know now, right, what's preventing you from moving forward? Okay, and they'll just tell you, right, because they're not aggressive, right? They're just gonna tell you, they're not on the defense. They're just gonna say, well, you know what, I'm really concerned about X, Y, and Z. So once they've told you that, then this is your opportunity to solve the problem now. Okay, so what you're saying is, if I can find you X, right, and do X, then you'll move forward. Okay, so for me, I had a crazy C personality that was going between me and another lender, and he did 3 different comparisons, and he couldn't figure out like what the solution was. And I said, hey man, we've got like 15 days to do your home loan, so I'm gonna tell you, you have to make a decision today, right? Because it's really important that we stay on track, and you're gonna lose your earnest money if we don't get this on track. So tell me what it is that's preventing you from moving forward. And he's like, well, there's like $250 in between you and the other guy. And I said, great. So if I can give you a $500 credit, right, I'm going to double the concern, right, then you will move forward with me right now. And he said, yeah. Great. I'm giving you a $500 credit. I'm sending you a disclosure, and we're moving forward now. Yes? Yes. Boom. Okay? That's how you have to do it. Sometimes they just spin out of control. I mean, I don't know what it is, but that's when your D, because they're not aggressive, better come out. Okay? So that's the trickiest one. Now, the good thing about a C personality, guys, is when you have sold a C, they don't go anywhere else. You know why? Because it was hard work to make the decision. Okay? So just know, right, once you've closed them, they're yours. Okay? Now, the next one, guys, is what you do for emotional people. Okay? So it's, how many of you guys,
Is that the I?
this is the I, your I's, and sometimes your S's. This will work on S's too. So it's the you deserve it close or the puppy dog close.
Oh.
Okay? How many times have you like met with a client, you know this is the right home, this checks all of their boxes, it's a great investment. If you had the money, you would buy it, right? We've been there, okay? But they won't say yes because they're so nervous. This is the first house they looked at. What if there's a million others, right? Or can I afford it? Even though we know they can afford it, it's under their debt ratio, they've got lots of reserves, they've paid similar rent for 3 years, right? This is the, you deserve it. Let me tell you, you've been paying this rent for 3 years. Okay, we've done your budget 5 times, right? The market is going up, it's appreciating. Worst case scenario, you rent it or you sell it. But it doesn't make sense for you to continue to pay rent, right? You deserve this, okay? Or it's the puppy dog close, right? When you walk by a puppy shop, right? You can picture the dog and you snuggling, right? You can smell it, right? You picture it. It's just the visualization of getting people past the sale. So this is what I was talking about with the Christmas tree and the pool in the backyard and the helping them visualize what it would look like with the outer wall, right? This is the puppy dog sale, right? This is, like you see the puppy, guys, and you already feel for it, you already love it, you already can imagine your life with it. That's why I don't walk past puppies. Do you walk? I'm so happy they're next to Dillard's. I never go into Dillard's either. Right? So, there's that. Okay, so we've done. Oh, then the next one, guys, with the S personality. So this is where people make the most mistakes. Okay, you meet somebody at an open house, you love them, you're giving them all this information. You do not book the appointment right then and there. Okay, so they need to know. So here's how you close them. Do you have any other questions? Okay, and if they say no, great. So if there are no other questions, our next step is to sign this buyer broker agreement. Right? If there are no more questions, right, our next step is to go see a property. If there are no more questions, right, here's our next step. It's called an assumption close. You're assuming that they're going with you. But 60% of the population, guys, they just want to know what the next step is. They want to know that you're in charge and that you have a pathway for their success. Okay? So what does not work on them is, oh, I'll email you the information later. Right? You guys have all been guilty. We all are guilty of this. Or, okay, great. So I'll take your phone number and I'll call you tomorrow. Right? Does not work. Okay? They have a hard time breaking a commitment because their biggest fear, remember, is acceptance. So if they already told you that they were going to go with you, right, their chances are you have a high probability of them moving forward. But if they haven't committed yet, right, and they talk to a detractor or a promoter or a raving fan, they can easily sway. Okay? But the fear of having to call you and say, Tori, I'm going somewhere else, it's too big for them. Okay? Alright. So does that all make sense?
Yes. And you
Okay.
said you'll hand that out to us?
You have to, ask Sammy for it, not mail it to you.
Who's Sammy?
Okay, so last one, guys, and this is the hardest one, and I only use this one if I'm ready to walk away from the client. Okay, so I have a set of rules for how I do business. Okay, so you have to talk to me. We have to go through a needs analysis. We have to make sure that I'm putting you in the right loan program. Okay, I don't do the whole I'm not going to talk to you. Here are my documents. You handle it. I've had that before. Those people always leave pissed off. They don't appreciate all my hard work. They don't appreciate the fact that I had to be a private investigator to get their damn loan done. Okay? And so if they don't play by my rules, I say, hey, I am not the right fit for you. It sounds like you're super busy and you need somebody who's going to do X, Y, and Z. So I am going to say that you need to go somewhere else. Right? I've done that. You have to be willing to walk away. It's called the takeaway close. Hey, you and I were not the right fit. Hey, it sounds like you're pretty upset right now. It doesn't seem like you're happy with my services. You've met those people who just start complaining, right? Oh, you sound super unhappy. Start with that question and they like, whoa, I'm not unhappy. Well, you just spent the last 15 minutes telling me why I didn't do a good job, right? So this is the same thing with like people who do not give me their documents up front, right? I can't get your home loan done if you're not going to give me your documents, right? And so I'm just like, hey, I get it, you're well qualified, you're awesome, but I will tell you that the ugliest deals I have are the ones where we start and we're not prepared. Where I find something out that you weren't expecting, like during your home loan process, and then you hate me because I should have known this beforehand. I should have forced you to get me your documents. So I'm just going to say right now that we're probably not a good fit. And then I have people who freak out and they're like, no, no, no. Like it happens all the time. So I only use that close if I'm literally prepared to walk away. The best person I have ever met at this close sits right there. Her name is Tori. I've seen her do it a million times. She just like, hey, we're going to play by my rules or we're not going to play at all. Okay? She taught it to me. I was like, okay, what do I say? Right? So if I can get so lucky, I'll try to get it on camera. Okay? But you are excellent at this. But it's you play by my rules or we're not playing. Okay, does that make sense? Okay? So that's primarily for your D personalities, guys, and people who are really hard to handle. It's 10% of clients, guys, who do not worry. If you're willing to walk away from them, there's a whole 90% of other clients still available. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to open this to questions so that we can maybe do some practice in case you have some legitimate scenarios. Right, or just answer questions. I know you have one.
Yes. The needs analysis, is it just a Word doc that you use, or?
I have a professional presentation. So how many of you guys have a professional presentation where you list out all your questions? Okay. If you do not have one, you need to have one. Okay. It needs to ask things like, what's your motivation for moving? What are your biggest concerns? Right. Tell me what price point of homes you've been searching in. Have you been pre-qualified? If you Google LP Mama, that's like one of the best real estate scripts there is, right? And it'll tell you what to put in your needs analysis. Now, here's what I can tell you about a needs analysis. So I have my clients fill this out before they meet with me. If I get a paperback and there's nothing on it, what kind of personality are they?
D.
They're a D personality. They didn't feel like it was important to fill the paper out. Okay? Now, if I get it, and it has little bit of information, but in the concerns site, it says, I'm afraid the market is going to crash, or I'm afraid I'm not going to find the right house, or I'm afraid of blah, 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 then I know that they're either an S or they're an I, right? They're emotional, right? If I get something that says, I am super worried about closing costs, down payment, right loan program, right, then I know that they're logical, right, and fear-based, which means that they're a C. And if that thing is filled out, guys, whew, it is a C, okay? If it's filled out with just the questions I ask, it's probably an S, okay? So that's also how I go into a scenario, okay? It's also super important to know up front if your expectations are not on the same line, okay? So there's lots of times where I know that somebody pre-qualifies for $200,000 and they're looking at $400,000 homes. Or they expect to pay $1,500 for a $500,000 property. And so right then and there, I can say, okay, I'm gonna have to do some redirecting. Instead of jumping in, thinking I know what they want, and then surprising them with the facts. Okay? So I normally start when something's like imbalanced, like they want a $500,000 home and a $1,500 payment. And I say, hey, so tell me more about this payment, right? So $1,500, is that what your budget allows, or is that just what feels good? Well, I've been paying $2,200, is what normally happens, but I want to pay $1,500. And I'm like, great, well let me tell you where that will get you. $1,500, and then this all depends on your down payment, which puts here, right? So then I put into perspective where their monthly payment would be, and I'm like, but you're looking for homes at this price. Okay, so then I go all the way to the other extreme. And I go, so you tell me now, based on the information that you know, what's more appealing to you, right? Rarely do people ever want to go down in price, right? They love the homes at $500,000, they're not going to love the homes at $200,000, okay? So that's also why I teach my sales team never to start with the payment first, okay? Unless they want to pay $1,500 for $500, okay? So if somebody says $1,000 and they have $200,000, right? That's more in line, right? That's a couple $100 off. I start with, hey, $200,000 is going to get you this, right? You want to pay $1,000, right? Is that really what you want to pay? And they're like, well, no, I can really afford this, and we start going down versus having to go up as a way harder sell. Okay, does that make sense? So just because somebody tells you they want to see a $150,000 condo, you have to ask more questions. It is way harder to get them to go up in price than it is to go down. Does everyone agree with me? Okay, cool. Any other questions? Other scenarios, other problems that you're having?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I like the, the following up and nurturing shorter term, let's say within a 3-month window.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's those that are like 6 to 12, or some even longer. And you can only check in and say so many facts and details and, try to stay relevant to the market. But at some point, that is what legitimately one of my emails that I say, on a long-term nurture is checking in. That's the title of it. Hey, just wanted to say hi, stay in touch, hope you're well. Just keep my face in front of them every, 2 months, whatever it is that I'm checking in with somebody who's a long-term nurture. So is that something that you think is acceptable, or you would still say no, find another way?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
And the reason I'm going to say no is because there's just so many ways to provide value. So I think that once a month you guys should be giving them an update on whatever's going on in the market. Like there's
HomeBot or something is.
HomeBot's good, get your
Which we're
Cromford
doing.
report, and so the thing is, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while, right? Are you still thinking, have you given up on your home search?
Okay.
Right? That's what I do. Like I have drips guys that say things like, did I drop the ball? Have you given up? Right? Honestly, if I haven't heard from somebody in a while, I'll send them a cricket emoji, 2 of them. And it sounds silly, but if you get it, the immediate response is you laugh and you're like, hey, what's up? Or, oh, I'm sorry, I meant to get back to you. Like, it's just, I think that there's better ways to do it. Hey, have you given up on your home search? Or, hey, here's your updates. Hey, you haven't favorited anything in a while. There's always things to say. I just think, like, unless you know something personal about them, I wouldn't necessarily just check in. Now, if you have really good rapport, and which you do, and all of your emails are very individualized, it's good, right? But if it's a drip thing, they can tell, So I'd be happy to look at your workflows though and kind of redo them.
I think it's important to check in consistently but not be salesy, because you have to, so I think it's important, you just have to find a reason to check in with them that's relevant to them. But you have to check in. Most people stop checking in.
Yeah, but it's not a check-in, guys, it's a follow-up.
Right,
So like,
you
I'm
have to be in touch
updating.
in front of them, you have to touch them.
And I will say that most mistakes are made on long-term drips. So I can tell you that the most painful things I've ever lost are the ones with clients that I had a great rapport with that told me to call them 6 months from now. And then they bought a month later because they walked into an open house and they found the damn house. And I was not top of mind. So now every 30 days, I follow up with them and give them a market update and then say, hey, has your situation changed? Are we still waiting 6 months? Okay.
So I haven't been good at like the whole drip campaign thing, but what I've been doing is, I have the flex emails that go out to certain clients. And so one of them I realized I hadn't contacted in a while, and I knew he was working on cleaning up his credit. So I just checked in with him to see how his cleaning up of the credit was going. And it was a check-in, but there was a reason to do it, because it,
I'm not saying you can't go, hey, checking in to see how your credit is going,
Well, no,
right?
no,
Like,
but-
you can say that phrase, but the whole like, just checking in.
but I don't, like, I wouldn't use the just checking in, I reached out because there was a point to reach out, but it was, like,
I don't think you even
Follow-up.
need to say check in, follow up, or reach out. You can call and say, hey Bob, I'm calling because the market rates have changed and I was wondering, where are you at in your home buying purchase? Hey Bob, I'm calling because I know there's a new subdivision coming in, prices are going up. Hey Bob, I'm calling because,
Her situation is that she knew that they were on credit, so I was like, hey, has the situation changed, right? So you can say, hey, I'm just
Yeah.
calling to follow up on the credit plan, right?
And then
Has anything changed?
And it prompted like a pretty good dialogue back and forth, because there was a reason to reach out, and it,
Absolutely. So, I mean, my point that I was making, guys, you guys are being very literal, which I appreciate. Okay, means that some of you are 60% of the population. But what I'm saying is, if the only value was to check in, it's not valuable and it's not authentic.
With your market analysis that you send out, you send monthly, what is all the information that you put together for them?
So I do think, so if you're on my email, are you on my Monday emails, Devontae? Sammy, can we check that? So I send out a weekly email actually, so I do it way more than monthly. I send out a weekly email that gives people a perspective on what's going on with interest rates and what the market is in layman's terms. So I will give people scenarios on what it costs to wait, what it does things, so just any topic I can think of.
But when you're communicating this to them, you're doing it via email, you're saying, right?
I'm doing it via email.
Okay, so if you're not, let's say you're sending it weekly, so in a month, 4 times of sending this out, you haven't really received anything back from them.
So I will say, hey, have you given up on your home search?
Okay.
Hey, did I make you mad?
That's,
Like, am I sending you garbage?
the drop the ball is, honest to God, if I can tell you guys something, if I get somebody that I'm like, what did I do? Like, things were good and now it's crickets. That is literally one of my best responders, and I stole it right from you, and that is what the subject says, did I drop the ball? And then in the email, I'll say, did I do something to make you mad? I'm really sorry if I did. I know we were working together, and then based on whoever it is, I change the email accordingly, but that 99.99% gets a response. Even if the occasional, yeah, you did, I'm like, oh. And then I gotta fix it, right? And that's where Lizy's been great at, like, no, you get back in there and you make it right.
Yeah, you say, I'm sorry, okay, great. Thank you for letting me know, that's awesome
Yeah.
feedback.
But that response, if you just put that as your subject line, and then whatever in the body, you will be amazed at the response you get.
Yeah, Brittany.
Still that one.
Got that, yeah, so we use that, it's just where I'm at, some of the, like right now, I mean, I have stuff lined up for January or in the spring, but if they're telling me that they're looking at that time, do I wanna what's over-communicating? I understand coming with value is still.
So why are they waiting? Is there a better opportunity now, right? So hey, I know you're planning on waiting for March, but I found a perfect property for you now.
Okay.
Like, that's with value.
No, it's not that it's not valuable at all, it's just, I
Hey,
guess,
this is what's going on in the area that you're looking to purchase. These are all the new restaurants that are opening. These are the schools. This is this. Hey, appreciation rate is this. This is awesome, right? Hey, I know you were planning on waiting, and I'm not trying to push that, but sometimes circumstances change. How are you doing with your home search? Right? I don't think, as so long as you're calling with value, like you think that the market doesn't change. Let me tell you, the guys, the market changes every hour. Like every minute, literally. You could call somebody and whatever. I have sometimes posted the exact same interest rates for 4 weeks in a row, and I still got stuff to say. I'm like, guys, be you. The market hasn't changed. Interest rates are, I write an email exactly how I talk. I'm like, we are so lucky interest rates are exactly the same. Woohoo! Right? Which means, boom, 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 right? That's still valuable. Real estate agents, do you want to know where interest rates are? Like, it just is. I promise you, to a person who's wanting to buy a home, more information is not a bad thing.
You're right. I mean, it's the communication via email feels less personal than, depending on the person, than, text or call. So, weekly or on whatever schedule, communicating the market analysis and also here's what's new on the market and out personalizing any other communication to them. Yeah, I have that. I think about that constantly. What's over communicating?
There isn't. I promise you.
People, if it's over communicating,
They'll let
don't
you.
open it at that point.
They'll let you know. I promise
And then
you.
when they're ready, they will open it.
Absolutely. And the cricket emoji thing, guys, I swear to God, works on all your unresponsive leads. Like, people get them, and and they always laugh. I've never had anyone tell me to F off, I promise. Okay? Awesome. Okay, guys, so here's what I'm going to ask you. Give me a show of hands if you found value from my class today. Okay. So if I knocked your socks off, gave you something to sell with, right, I am hoping that you will give me back your next referral. Okay? That's what's called an obligation close. So I hope I've obligated you to now leave Lizy alone. Okay? Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys for coming. Yes, I do, girl.